Today I am setting up yet another 2023 journal, but this one's not for me. Let's get started. Hey y'all, welcome back to Dots and Beyond. My name is Beth and today I am setting up a bullet journal for my son. Now this will be for 2023 and this is the third bullet journal that I have set up for him. The first was in 2021. It was a complete surprise. I gave it to him for Christmas in 20, a full year bullet journal ready to go. I'll link that video up above and down in the cards below if you would like to check it out. I did set up parts of his 2022 journal on camera, so those are also videos that you can go back and watch. Now his themes over the last 2 years have pretty much been based on his fandoms, but as he's gotten used to using the bullet journal method, he now has some ideas of his own and is definitely picking themes that are not necessarily pop culture related. And he had a lot more input into his annual pages for this year, so we're going to go ahead, open this gorgeous Archer and Olive journal from the Halloween box, and get started. Some of my journaling habits must be rubbing off on him because he's decided this year he wants to name his journal and has chosen the name Urania. Urania being one of the 9 muses. She is also the goddess of the stars and astronomy. Now I also took Kenny to Michael's and let him pick out his own color palette with Tombows. So I am going to grab those now and let you see what we will be working with. And we are going with a core color of purple along with this rich goldenrod color. Now I know not everybody around the world has a Michaels, so I will link to some Amazon resources for Tombow dual brush pens in the description box below, along with all of the other supplies we're using in this video. And then I added a Tombow N95, my favorite light gray, into the mix because I felt like I needed something even lighter than this purple. And then out of the Ohuhu markers that I have, I chose this Ohuhu 51, which is sort of the same dark shade of purple as that dark Tombow, mainly because I really need the fine point tip. And here is how this color palette looks on our swatch page. I'm not going to be using any other sort of pens other than the Pigma Microns. And for the Pigma Micron fine liners, I will be using a combination of thicknesses, mainly because I do have this font that I have to deal with that I've created. There's also a silver Uniball in the mix, but the thicknesses of those Pigma Microns that I'm going to be using are a 1.0, a 0.04, a 0.01, and I think a 0.08. Using the different thicknesses of the fine liners really is all about creating depth and illusion, and with this sort of sans serif font that I have created that has some very fine lines and some very thick lines, I really needed a combination of all of these to make those work. But the first thing we are going to do is sketch out a compass here on the end page. A compass rose is so much easier to do on the dot grid because the dots really make it super simple, but all I did here was just pick a center spot that I felt like was a good location. From that center spot, I counted out 5 centimeters in each direction and drew my pencil lines for the vertical and the horizontal lines, and then on the diagonals I actually only went out 4 centimeters from the center. A compass rose is one of those things that is supposed to be perfectly symmetrical, but if it doesn't end up perfect, that's fine too. As long as we get close and you can tell what it's supposed to be, that's what I'm going for. Now, even with sped up editing and cutting out some bits that you guys don't necessarily need to see, this video is still fairly long, so I am actually going to jump to the coloring in, and for the compass rose, you just color the right side of each one of those points. For this journal, I created Kenny a flip out key. Now he has not really been using the key system in his journal. While he does make notes and write down his schedule, he doesn't necessarily been using the key. So we have put a key here that he can flip out to the side as he's using his journal and see it no matter what page he's on. And now we are going to use some of the vellum pieces that came in the Archer and Olive Halloween box with this journal. The one thing that I have done differently is that you can print on and color on vellum sheets. So here on the back, I have gone ahead and filled in some of the moons, some of the stars with the purples and the yellows just to give this vellum sheet a little bit more interest. This sheet we're going to add in like a tip-in, and a tip-in is where you just add a page to your journal with tape or washi tape. We're going to use this holographic washi tape, which Kenny just adores, and tip this in on both sides to make it a little more secure. Now I did have to do a little bit of arranging and cutting and fiddling with to get this to fit correctly, but eventually I got it in there and we're ready to move on to the next page. For the actual nameplate, I am just going to let Kenny write in his own name or put whatever it is he wants to put on this page. I'm not necessarily going to do anything here. But I will come back and clean up all of these pencil lines on the cover page before we do the final flip through. Now there were so many cool embossed vellum sheets that came in the Archer and Olive Halloween box that I couldn't just use just one. So here on this other page, I'm going to paste one here on the left side as well, next to Kenny's Ear at a Glance. I did add some color to this one as well, but to paste it in here this time, I am just going to use a good old tape roller because it will dry clear and stick this right into the page. Now, I don't normally put a year at a glance in a journal, but this year we're doing something radically different with Kenny's future log, and so I felt like it was important to have his calendar all on one page if he needs to see it for reference. For this page, I'm starting off with the 2023 header, and again, this sans serif font that I have. The only changes to it, it's still thin in areas and thicker in areas and has the little flourishes on it, but it also has some little diamonds here and there to sort of indicate a celestial vibe. It isn't necessarily my favorite. I think it could have turned out better, but while I'm mostly happy using stencils when it comes to lettering, Kenny likes to have unusual fonts. For the mini calendars, I am going to highlight the days of the week in a light purple and then fill out the Monday through Sunday with this fine tip of the Ohuhu, and this is why I pulled the Ohuhu out in order to help out with this journal setup. Now, I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to say it again. I do not write out every little number in pencil when I'm planning. I just write 1, 8, 15, 22, and 29 on each month, and that's how I keep track of where everything's going to go. Writing out all of these mini calendars does definitely take some time, so we are just going to pop in the final for you, and I'm going to add some washi tape. This washi tape, as well as the iridescent one, came in a single pack that we purchased at Michael's when Kenny was also picking out his color palette. And now I'm just going to add some little yellow diamond stars to match the ones that are on the vellum paper and just tie things in a little better. Same goes for using this silver pen to bring in that element of that foil stamping on the vellum as well. That will wrap up the year at a glance, and we're ready to move on to the next spread. Now on this next spread, we're really going to take a turn into some of the things that Kenny wants. But first, I am going to add a grid guide here to the bottom left corner. This is for me, this is not for him, because I'm the one who sets up his journals from month to month. Now I'm sure you can tell we were a little into the mystic in this journal setup, but the overarching theme for this journal is going to be tarot. In order to have uniform tarot cards as I was sketching them out in the journal, I did make this template for myself to trace when I was doing the pencil lines. I am not going to trace this in pen. We're going to freehand things and make them look a little more organic. And this first tarot card I'm going to sketch on the page is the Earth, mainly because this symbol here is also one of the symbols of Urania. Since that grid guide is just 8 straight ruler lines, we're going to fade those in and get to sketching. This is the first of 5 specific tarot cards I am sketching in to Kenny's journal. And since tarot cards are fairly uniform, I have made the color scheme on all of them the same, so I am going to show you how I colored in this one, and in some of the future ones, we're not going to show the coloring in process. You've already seen me do it once. So in the instances where I placed a second card behind it, I am coloring in that card a solid yellow like it is the back of the tarot card. There's also a diamond in each corner, and then I'm using the dark purple to do the edges. There is an indentation in the top of each tarot card where I can later come with the silver Uniball gel pen and put in the corresponding Roman numeral. Each card has a corresponding doodle, this one being the Earth with some concentric rings around it to indicate the galaxy. And then the inside of the background of each card will be colored in with this very light purple. Most of the time that is it, but sometimes you do need a little bit of extra color, and so I do color our globe the dark purple as well, just to make it stand out a little better. And that will wrap up the grid guide page, which is really more an artistic expression and a reference page for me, not so much for Kenny to use. What comes next, however, is all Kenny. He asked me to put 12 months in a row where he could do a tarot reading at the beginning of every month. Down in the description box is a link to Interrobang Tarot where I found a shorthand for all of the tarot symbols. If Kenny's going to be recording his tarot readings in his journal, I felt like he needed a tarot key in addition to his bullet journal key. On the front side of this page, I am going to list the minor arcana along with their shorthand. Those cards being the Wands, Cups, Swords, Pentacles, Page, Knight, Queen, King, and Reverse. And then I am going to create a Dutch door out of this page to put the rest of the key on the back. A Dutch door merely means cutting off a portion of a journal page to reveal what is below. For this, I use a cutting mat from the Dollar Tree as well as a Safe X cutting knife. And then I just round the corners so that page looks very much like the rest of the journal pages. Flipping over to the back side of this page, and we're ready to put in the major arcana. So we are going to have shorthand symbols for the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Empress, the Emperor, the Hierophant, the Lovers, the Chariot, Strength, the Hermit, the Wheel of Fortune, Justice, the Hanged Man, Death, Temperance, the Devil, the Tower, the Star, the Moon, the Sun, Judgment, and the World. But of course, each one of these major arcana also have a corresponding Roman numeral. To put those in, I am going to turn this journal to its side and write those Roman numerals next to each one of those icons. And that will give Kenny a full set of symbols that he can use when recording his tarot readings. Thanks again to Interrobang Tarot for the shorthand. After erasing, I do add some more of the yellow sparkle stars just to tie things in with what we've already done thus far. And then I pull in some washi tape just to fill some of the empty spaces. And that will set us up for some of the most important pages in Kenny's annual setup. This page on the right of the spread is going to be his January tarot reading spread for 2023. We had a lot of conversations on how to set this up, but ultimately he decided that a 3-card pull was a good number for him for the beginning of each month. And because we were already going to have a dedicated page for each month, we've also added his future log down the edges of each page. Because the future log cannot all be seen together is the reason that I gave him a year at a glance. Now I am only going to set up January on camera. I have already done February through December, so we can flip through those once this is done. I divided the page with 2/3 on the left and 1/3 on the right with a thin silver line. His mini calendar for January will live on that right side with empty space below it to hold his future log. At the top of each page will be a place for him to record his 3 cards, the date, any keywords he would like to go with those, the 3 questions he asked when pulling those cards, and then a space for him to write in his interpretation. And of course, at the front of all of these reading pages, he does have this tarot key from which he can draw reference. In the last 2 versions of his journal, Kenny's not been that great about coming to fill out his future log. He also hasn't been referencing his annual pages that much, and he specifically asked me to put all 12 of these months at the beginning of the journal so that he would be drawn back to them and urged to fill them out. And then to support both his growing tarot reading practice and his growing journaling practice, he specifically requested a year in pixels so he can track the days that he does a tarot reading, the days that he journals, or the days that he does both. A year in pixels is an annual chart where you can track just about anything. Across the top are the months of the year. I am looking at this now and realizing down the left side I forgot to put in the days of the month from 1 to 31, so I do add those in a little bit later. But this type of a chart gives you 365 squares for 365 days. Now when it comes to the tarot cards I'm illustrating in this journal, I was given a very definitive list that Kenny resonates with, and this one here is the Fool. And that will wrap up this tarot and journal tracker. We are going to move on to the next spread, which is a place where Kenny can write down his goals or his intentions. I am naming this page Intentions. Neither one of us really love the word goals. Kenny in particular is a very artistic individual, and goals evoke a sort of hard and fast permanence with which he's not comfortable. Now, as I am filming this, he was not quite ready to commit to what his goals are going to be or even what the goal categories were going to be. And so he said, "Mom, why don't you just go ahead and leave those blank and I will fill them in when I'm ready." And so that is what I have done, topping off this page with another one of his preferred cards, the Sun. And since we have the Sun, it is only right that we also have the Moon. Y'all, I am going to confess, I do not know why I continue to do this to myself and put a moon chart in Kenny's journal. Sure, it looks great, but if you want one. Just print a moon chart and put it in your journal if you want one in your journal. A quick Google of 2023 moon phases or 2023 moon chart will find you an enormous amount of moon charts from which to choose. Obviously, I am a glutton for punishment, so we are getting ready to draw 96 circles. And when one is drawing this many circles, one is bound to make some mistakes. There is at least one glaring error that I have yet to fix, but I'll get around to it eventually. And hopefully that is the only one. At least it's the only one that I can currently see. I do put a key off to the left for new moon, waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning gibbous, last quarter, and waning crescent. For this chart, the months are down the left side of the moon chart, and then I have the numbers for each day across the bottom. And inevitably, if one draws 96 circles for the moon, one then must color in 96 circles for the moon. One thing I am doing differently in his moon chart this year is to put the actual intention that should go along with each one of the moon cycles. In order, those are set intentions: visualize, take action, focus, express, revise, reflect, and release. While we have a moon chart, the moon card was not one of the tarot cards that Kenny wanted included, and so on this page I am drawing in another one that he requested, which is the Empress. And since the setup of this moon page very much mimics the intentions page on the previous page, I am also adding some washi tape. Y'all, I know this has been a long one and we are almost to the end. We have one more spread to set up and we are going to do that super quickly. Kenny debated taking this page out this year, but he really does like having some sort of a recommendations page. This year we are naming that Explore. And I just divided the page into 6 equal boxes for books, movies, shows, music, podcasts, and dining. And then as his mom, I always do like to sneak in a good quote page. I also needed to add one more of his requested tarot cards, this one being the Lovers. And the quote I chose is from Neil Gaiman's American Gods: "Today's future is tomorrow's yesterday." I know those last couple of spreads went pretty quickly, but they really were just repeating elements from spreads that we had already set up. So let's go ahead and flip back to the beginning for a flip through. I've never had the pleasure of introducing one of my son's journals to you by name, so let me introduce you to Urania. She has this tip-in key that Kenny can pop out to use as reference as he is trying to learn more about the bullet journal method. And then of course we made great use of these gorgeous vellum papers that came in the Archer and Olive Halloween box for 2022. But of course, the bulk of this journal setup was built around Kenny's desire to increase his tarot practice. I love that his experiences in his bullet journal for the last 2 years have led him to knowing exactly what he wanted set up for 2023. If you've made it this far in the video and you found something in it helpful, please go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up and drop me some sort of celestial emoji down in the comments below, along with a comment on whether you use your bullet journal for any sort of spiritual practice, whatever it is you practice. This is the last bullet journal that I will be setting up for 2023, but we have a lot more content coming to you between now and the 25th. Did you catch my moon mistake? Because I still haven't fixed it. It lives right here. If you are still looking for 2023 bullet journal inspiration, I will link my planmas playlist down below where I have already set up both my business bullet journal and my personal journal. And an extra special thank you to all of the new subscribers who have joined here at the end of 2022. We're going to enjoy having you as part of the Dots and Beyond family. And if you've not yet joined, please hit that subscribe button below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.